Hello and welcome to the Farmers Union pregame show. As always, I'm Ken Oda. Noah Grant is alongside. We're getting you ready for Toros and Bobcats after a busy week here in the North American Hockey League.
Yeah, it certainly was. Obviously, a weekend, I think, where the Toros, again, kind of rocky to start out the weekend. Really was overall, actually, one of those weekends again where the Toros had to have some late game heroics to kind of get out of there and escape with some points. But that's what good teams do, kind of trying to find some momentum here and getting ready for a team coming off of, well, not just a good weekend, but a good couple of months in the Bismarck Bobcats, who I think it's 8 games in a row, and they've won 13 of their last 16. The only team to beat them in the middle of that stretch, the Minot Minotauros, for 3 games over the holiday break at Christmas.
Yeah, it's been a good run for the Bobcats, and after that rocky weekend for the Toros, where John Emmons again plays the hero, late game heroics, but then 4 guys and head coach Cody Campbell went off to Pittsburgh for the Top Prospects Tournament. Lettinen, Kettinen, Jockems, and Stahowiak. Lettinen had an assist for Team Central, who became the first team ever at the tournament not to give up a goal the entire time. So kudos to head coach Cody Campbell on that.
I suppose it's only fitting that a former goaltender doesn't allow a goal in the tournament, right?
And so then those guys, because of the time of their game on Tuesday, couldn't fly back until Wednesday. Same thing, I believe, for the Bismarck guys as well. So they flew back on Wednesday. They got back to their teams yesterday for the first time to practice, and then jumping right back into it. So it'll be an interesting storyline to keep an eye on, how well they handle the fatigue.
Yeah, certainly a big challenge, but as we've kind of alluded to before, the number of players that go is dependent on your standings, in the Central Division. And I think if you're the Toros, you're a little bit happy that you're playing the second place team. It's not like you're playing, Austin from a couple weeks ago that's in that 5th spot that suddenly
didn't send as many guys.
Right. So you kind of have equal footing on that front. But again, I don't think equal footing would be the right term here if you want to be completely honest about it. Out of the 2 teams coming into this game tonight, there's been one that's been better than the other in the month of January and early February. It has not been the Toros. Bismarck has been on a tear, and this is going to be a tough matchup.
No, I think this might be the first time all season that we talk about the other team coming in hotter than the Toros right now. You mentioned it, the Toros lost 6-4 on Friday, get the 5-4 win on Saturday over St. Cloud. Jockems and Kettinen each with 2 points on Friday. O'Hannison and Stacks with 2 each on Saturday. But again, it's John Emmons getting the Toros going with a late goal to pull the Toros within 1. Lettinen gets the game tire in the final 20 seconds, and then Emmons again finds the winner in OT.
Yeah, and a good character win. And you even go back to that Friday night game where the Toros jumped out to an early 2-0 lead. A pair of Ryland Jockems goals, by the way. You kind of feel like it hasn't been often that the Toros have given up 4, 5, 6 goals in a hockey game. They still scored 4. Chalk that up to just one of those where each goaltender couldn't stop a beach ball that night. Sometimes that just happens. And unfortunately for the Toros, kind of continues that streak, though. Right now, 7 of their last 9, they've given up the first goal of the hockey game. Oddly enough, though, the game in which they scored first, they lost. In the game in which they gave up the first goal, they won on Saturday.
Let's take a look at what that all meant for the Central Division. A quick look at the Central Division standings. The Toros still atop the division with 61 points. Bobcats, as you mentioned, in second with 54. Aberdeen, St. Cloud holding the last 2 playoff spots. Austin starting to fall farther and farther back, just 5 points back. In fact, we were looking at it, the Toros, if you're into it, the magic number for the Toros is 11 Toro wins or Bruins losses. So the Toros inching closer, despite having maybe their worst stretch, just 6-4 over the last 10, to clinching a playoff spot.
Well, and you talk about inching closer as well. When we finished the holiday break, I believe it was a 13-point spread between first and second place in the division. It is now down to 7 based on the red-hot play of the Toros. But the fact is, when your biggest swoon is in the month of January and you're still maintaining
you're 6-4.
Yeah, a 2-weekend advantage, so to speak. But things could obviously change dramatically. The one team that's chasing you is the opponent you have tonight.
Certainly. Let's look at how those teams match up, a peek at the Noodles numbers. You can see right there, Toros offense still clicking along, over 3.5 goals a game while allowing just 2.2 that number does creep up. It was down right around 2 before last weekend, but giving up 10 goals on a weekend will do that. And then you look at Bismarck, still impressive, not quite as dramatic as the Toros as far as the gap, 3.154, 2.43 against.
Well, and you look at what's kind of the key to success for both of these teams and why are they atop the Central Division. It's not so much their goal production, although 3.5 to 3 goals a game, that'll serve just fine no matter where you're playing. But it's the ability to limit opportunities. The only 2 teams in the Central Division to have given up less than 100 goals against, would imagine, unless we have a crazy goaltending duel, which is actually somewhat maybe probable, depending on all of these goaltenders this weekend. But one, if not, if it's a scary one for Minot, both of these teams will be in the double digits before too long. But you look at power play percentages. The Toros, top 10 in the league, sitting right at number 10, 20%. They've been good. They've had 4 power play goals in their last 3 games. On the other side, Bismarck, 14th, very middling, which is, again, the conversation we've talked about. Both these teams do not need special teams in order to be productive. The one that they have needed, 1st and 8th respectively for the Toros and Bismarck Bobcats in terms of penalty kills. So they stave off defensively, they score enough at 5-on-5, and hey, they'll tack on a special teams goal here or there.
Well, when you talk about the only 2 teams to give up fewer than 100 goals so far on the season in the division, penalty kill a huge part of that for both clubs. Let's look at the Minotoro's Booster Club players to watch. I'm going with Nicholas Kettinen. I went with him last weekend too, as he was coming back from illness. Went off to top prospects. Again, he was sick. He played a couple of games in St. Cloud, had to travel, and I think he's been a huge key for the Toros. When he's going well, the Toros are going well. So hopefully, the fatigue of everything of late doesn't catch up to him and he can have himself a strong weekend.
Well, the fact that he paced the Toros with 3 points last weekend quietly, and the ability for him, like you said, to kind of go through all that and jump back in the lineup, not miss a beat, I think that just kind of speaks to the consistency that he brings as a player. He's not a flashy player by any means. He's not somebody that you're like, oh my gosh, we need to keep eyes on him. But that's exactly what works into his game, is he just quietly creates plays. On the other side, somebody also in the assist column, but scoring goals last weekend, Rylan Jochums, 2 goals, 4 shots on Friday. He's only been held off the score sheet once during an entire weekend, one time since North Iowa in mid-November. That's 9 weekends, 19 games. He's only had 1 weekend out of those 9 that he hasn't tallied a point. I don't think we talk about him enough, even though he also was in the same Central Division top prospects. Yeah,
and crazy to think that the 1 weekend he didn't put up a point was a North Iowa weekend. But Jochums, 2 goals last weekend was great to see. I actually, fans who watched that Friday game, I talked to him during the first intermission. I gave him a hard time. He had only had 1 goal all season going in. He'd been putting up assists like crazy. And I was teasing him, did you get a new stick? And he actually didn't get a new stick, but he did change his tape job. So superstition being what it is among athletes, I'm sure we're going to see that tape job the rest of the year.
Very quickly, what's interesting, you talk about just his string in general, besides the first 10 games where, of course, he was still finding his footing, I think it's only 1 other time he's not scored or gotten a point at all in 2 consecutive games, and it was a 3-game string in October. So he's been pretty good.
That'll bring us to our home key group keys to the game, and Noah, I'll let you kick this one off.
Yeah, my first key is free flow. We've talked about how do the Toros find success, especially when they were down in Bismarck over the holiday break. It's all about the transition and the breakouts. The one thing that made Minot really successful in that game, even though they didn't score until the middle of the second period, they were creating offense because they weren't spending time in the D zone. Transition, cycles through the neutral zone, odd man rushes, have to get back to that. When the game gets bogged down, it does not usually favor the Toros.
And I'm going to call an audible here. Noah, I had a different one than what I'm going to go with. Since it's the home key group keys of the game, I'm going to talk about the man in the mask, a fancy new mask for Brady James, brought to you by Home Key Group. You can actually check out, they did the custom paint job themselves. They've got their logo on the back plate, but we talked about it earlier. Toros gave up 10 goals last weekend. That can't be the case moving forward. Toros need to get back to holding opponents to that 1 or 2 a game, and I think Brady James with his new bucket will be primed to do that if he gets the go tonight.
Yeah, and one of the few teams that have found success with high-scoring games against the Toros as well. My final thought here on our combo pick, fun on a Friday. Stop losing on night number 1. 3 of the last 4 Fridays have been losses for the Toros, 2 of them coming in this building. It's got to change against a team that's won 8 in a row.
Yeah, you can't sweep a weekend if you lose on night one. So if we're going to get back to that, Toros got to get the win here tonight instead of having to try and salvage points tomorrow. That brings us to our Four Bears Casino and Lodge over and unders. You can play along with these in the Toros Hockey mobile app. Noah, I'll let you guess along. Toros first period goals, we set the number at 0.5.
I hope it's the over, and I would like it to be the first one. That would be good.
Toros total saves by their goaltenders, 29.5. Whether it's Lucas or Brady, will the Toros goaltenders make more than 29.5?
I'm going to go with under just for the fact that I don't think it's going to be a high shot volume type of game. It feels like it's going to be tightly contested, and at the same time, they have been high-scoring games as of recent for most of them, so that could be a factor. But I don't know that we're maybe even going to get to 30 shots against for the Toros.
And a new one for fans who've been playing a long time, total special teams goal. This is combined for both teams. We talked about the penalty kills being good, 1.5. You think we'll see 2 or more special teams goals?
The statistics say no, but against these two teams, I'm going to go with the over. We've had some pretty high power play, special teams, S-type games. You go back to the holiday break, that chaos. So yeah. I think we're going to see the over on that one.
Yeah, if you get a bunch of chances, if the penalty kill percentage might still be good if you're having to kill 6 or 7 penalties in the game.
Yeah, the Toros are a much more penalized team. It's 600 and some penalties compared to like 490 for the Bobcats, though, so important to be disciplined as well.
Last thing for you before we go here on the Farmers Union pregame show, the McDonald's Toros Trivia. Gave you guys an easy one tonight. Which current Toro has been on the roster the longest? Your options: Trevor Stahoyak, Kobe Wook, Weston Knox, Adam Mahler. So get your guess in. I'm not even going to let you guess.
Yeah.
I know you know the answer. There's probably a banner right here on the front of the press box. That would be a pretty good tip. But that'll do it for the Farmers Union pregame show. Make sure you get your guesses in the Toros Hockey mobile app. We're going to turn it over to Josh for tonight's introductions.